Hi, and welcome to THORsday Comics. I'm Tom Scioli, author of I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. In the show notes below, there's a pre-order link where you can pre-order that book, as well as the softcover edition of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. So today we're highlighting another issue of the Avengers. It's Avengers number 5, and this is the Invasion of the Lava Men, and it follows up from a Thor story where it's Thor versus the Lava Man. Now we have the Lava Men, a more fitting adversary for the Avengers, since it would be a little bit of an unfair fight if all of them ganged up on just the Lava Man. So we have this great opening splash, and I just this era of the Avengers. It's just like a really nice looking team, just like the colors and the costume designs all go together really nicely. This is right after Avengers number 4, where they find Captain America floating in a block of ice and defrost him. An epic tale told with high drama and heroic dignity by Stan Lee, illustrated with deep sincerity and dazzling beauty by Jack Kirby, inked by Paul Reinman, lettered by S. Rosen. As always, this story was also co-written by Jack Kirby, even though the credits don't reflect that. And so you have all the Avengers, and then you have Rick Jones looking very much like a young Jack Kirby here. His mode of dress, his face, his hairstyle looks like young Jack Kirby. These sort of baggy sweaters. These early Kirby Avengers, they just look like $1 million. I mean, just the drawing's fun, the sort of, loosey-goose Paul Reinman inking, and all these characters with great designs and the way, the color works. Everybody gets their little bit. They're all going off to their own individual adventures and having, the various scales. You have Giant Man and the Wasp, and then they shrink down and are, riding on ants. And then our guy Thor is twirling his hammer, flying off. And when Superman would fly, you wouldn't see this, where like the skyline would be, tilted or sideways to this severe a degree. Superman flew in a very polite way with, the skyline where it's supposed to be on the ground. And as a result, there was no sense of dynamism to those comics. But here's Kirby, reinventing the language of superhero comics. Everybody goes their separate ways, with the Hulk kind of being phased out of the Avengers. His sidekick, Rick Jones, is being phased into Captain America's orbit. We got a really great shot of Iron Man, and I like the way his mask kind of goes up there and leaves a little bit of like a helmet. And then we get, some stuff going on at the Stark Labs, and then an earthquake, and Tony Stark gets a phone call. And he's just hanging around at home in his boxers, basically, but he always has to have the Iron Man chest attached, because that's what keeps his heart going. It keeps the shrapnel from reaching his heart and killing him. Ant-Man and Wasp have their little side quest going on with the ants, and then the anthill gets hit with an earthquake, just like the Stark Labs, and then another accident that now Dr. Don Blake has to go investigate, and then the newly resurrected Captain America is, giving a little demo, a little exercise and action adventure demonstration to some neighborhood kids. He's just a good guy. He's a man of the people. And then Thor joins in, starts telling him about, what he's investigating, and then another earthquake starts. And, okay, this is getting to be ridiculous, so let's do it. They meet, they got their big, map of the United States. And now we start to see what's causing these earthquakes. This, giant rock is bulging up out of the surface, and we're bringing in, yet another member of the cast. The Hulk may not be an active member of the Avengers, but he's still there on the periphery. We got Bruce Banner. Thunderbolt Ross is asking him to, give his diagnosis about what's going on with this rock. Bruce Banner's experiencing a flashback to everything up to this point, and then Thunderbolt Ross is like, okay, Stop daydreaming and make yourself useful, Banner. You're a scientist. What do you make of that confounded growing hill? Oh, Bruce, please try to solve the mystery for my father. Perhaps it will make him feel differently about you, about us. Kind of reminding you of the dynamic in the Hulk story. And now, man, Kirby makes really nice use of these sort of two-third images that take up two-thirds of the page. This is beautiful, and I love the sort of cutaway where we're seeing what's going on underground and above ground, and we get some Kirby's macro technology, these giant stone machines with gears and whatnot that are slowly pushing this rock up to the surface. And then we get a look at the stone men, and I really like the design. So we have the stone man from the issue of Thor, and after Thor defeated him, now he's kind of like an advocate for Thor and for the surface people. He's not like a villain anymore, but his people are still not convinced, and they just look. I love this guy's headdress. I did a sculpture that was kind of like this when I was in college, and then the high priest. Just really great design. I love this. When Kirby does a sort of like a stony kind of look to things. I mean, obviously, he's got a lot of very famous stone based characters. The Thing being the most prominent, and then the Gray Gargoyle being one we've seen in the pages of Thor. And so, yeah, we have this intrigue going on. And so we get a little bit of like a Jafar in Aladdin kind of situation where the advisor to the king is kind of pushing for bad stuff, sort of the power behind the scenes, pushing for war between the lava men and the surface men. And so now the Avengers show up. Iron Man sees what his gadgets can do to that, and they don't do much of anything. So then he starts digging around it, and it causes some upset below the surface. Again, just these lava men are just such great eye candy. Yeah, anytime Kirby employs pink and magenta for one of his characters, it's always fun. I'm thinking of the Lump from Mr. Miracle. Iron Man has gone underground. He's fighting this army, and just all the great kind of stuff that you would only see in a Kirby comic. One superhero versus a whole army, and now Thor's like, okay, you did your best, Iron Man, but this is a job for a god. And so Thor starts walking, and none of this stuff bothers him. Who is ruler of the lava men? Take me to him. Thor, I mean, he's a god. Now we're getting a sense of Thor's powers that I don't think we've seen yet. These Norse gods in sort of Marvel land, in Kirby land, up to this point, they're super strong, super tough, but like, again, this is like Superman level stuff, and I don't think we've seen Thor in a situation like this before, where he can basically walk through molten lava, and it doesn't seem to bother him one bit. He seems like maybe mildly irritated by it. We get a view here of his hammer doing some kind of magic. Now the verbiage, most likely written by Stan, suggests that what's going on with the hammer is that it's solidifying the lava just enough that he can sort of step back up and end up back at the surface. And I mean, I just wonder if maybe, Kirby's intent was that, the hammer is creating some kind of maybe shield or something that keeps Thor from being, feeling any kind of effect from the lava. Again, it's just conjecture on my part. It's just like this demonstration of strength seems so uncharacteristic. Like I would imagine that Thor would maybe feel some kind of burn, some kind of hurt. That like, yes, he can take a beating and maybe can even tolerate being in lava. But for him to be so unaffected by it, just it seems like a big jump from what we've seen previously with Thor and what we typically see with Thor. But it also seems out of character with Kirby's work and with just sort of like the Marvel universe that Jack and Stan are creating. In that, I feel like one of the hallmarks of it and what sets it apart from the DC comics and the other superhero comics of the era is that Marvel heroes suffer and they exert effort, and even though they they win out more often than they lose, it still requires some effort and some suffering and some pain and some setbacks. And so it just seems tonally inconsistent and just very different from what we've seen of Thor, and that's just how it's coming across to me. It's not any kind of knock or critique, but an observation. And then we get another shot of this sort of high priest and just looking super cool, super threatening. I'm a little surprised he didn't become more of like an ongoing major threat for the Avengers or for Thor. And I mean, for all I know, maybe he could have. I'm by no means an Avengers completist. And so now, they put Thor through the ringer, and Thor is like, hey, I'm the Superman of the Marvel Universe. I can do this all day. This shit does not bother me. And so, he's like, okay, so what's the deal? What's going on? We get a really nice shot again of this machine. The scale of it is extremely impressive. Just like a fun sci-fi idea that there's this sort of living rock that is highly explosive, and they're going to push it up to the surface, and it's going to be the surface men's problem. It's very combustible, very explosive, and they have their little stone technology. We see that this is in fact a mask. This is not what the high priest's head looks like. And now again, this is what I love about these early Avengers. You got everybody gets their little moment. And just like the drawing's really fun. And again, with this Paul Reinman inking, it's just got a very dashed out, rough and tumble quality to it that's just so much fun. So much more fun than if it were sort of like a polished, perfectly rendered drawing. You got the Kirby structure underneath in the pencils, which is also a bit rough and tumble, fast, but very structurally sound. But then you put on this little rougher Paul Reinman surface, and you have magic. So now it's Captain America's turn to be the hero. He throws his shield. It's bouncing around, causing all kinds of damage, coming back. But then he gets snagged by some kind of weird stone men weapon, lava men weapon. Now it's Ant-Man and the Wasp's turn. They come in, and Iron Man's kind of like the Cyclops from Krull, and he's trying to keep these walls from closing in. And they're fighting on this rush of lava men. Now it's melting this stone that Iron Man was using to hold these walls open. And so Giant Man, thinking fast, grabs a helicopter and uses it as a coolant and also as wind to sort of blow all those guys back out of there. Iron Man gets Captain America free. And man, look at this great shot here, these great silhouettes. The chiaroscuro, the double stars of Cap's chest emblem and his shield. And now it's Thor. If this is the JLA, Thor is Superman. It's Thor. At last, we are together again. We Avengers shall need all our skill and strength for the task that lies ahead. And now, the Hulk's having his little drama, and he shows up, he joins in. And for a guy who's not an active member of the Avengers, he does seem to find his way into just about all of these early issues. And so now look at this. This is like a pile on. This is I guarantee Kirby's thinking of some of the gang fights he got into as a kid with playing King of the Hill or something, where they're all piling on one guy. Pile on the rabbit. Got some ads for some cool comics coming up. Black Widow strikes again. Thor's swinging his hammer, and then there's an atomic blast. The High Priest has this, radioactive club. He points it at Thor, and it does the unthinkable. It forces the transformation back to Don Blake. So now he's defenseless, and the Avengers are figuring out what to do. And so Ant-Man / Giant Man, or Giant Ant-Man, has a plan. He knows about a weak spot in this rock, and so he tries to coax Hulk into hitting it, and then the Wasp ends up doing the deed. She flies to just the right spot where the Hulk tries to smash her, and instead he smashes the weak spot, which causes this thing, instead of exploding in a catastrophic way that would destroy the human race and the entire surface, instead of exploding outward, because the Hulk hits that weak point, it implodes. So it has this massive implosion that kind of is loud and destructive, but ultimately harmless. Thor gathers his wits, or Don Blake gathers his wits, turns back into Thor, gives the lava men a talking to, lets them know that they've been beaten. Hear the words of Thor, men of the netherworld. The surface men are not your enemies. They only desire to live in peace. But if you ever again threaten their existence, they will fight to the end with weapons of more power than you can imagine, and with the Avengers at their side. Now return to your homes, to your normal lives, for our mercy is the equal of our strength. So yeah, Thor, employing rhetoric as a way of defeating an enemy. Something you'd see in, like a Homeric play. General Ross calls off the missile strike, which would have proven catastrophic. Man, I love this kind of stuff where the Avengers are just sort of drawn very tiny, and in their little corners there's Rick, and they're sort of nursing their wounds. Now to rejoin the others and to seal this opening so the lava men remain below. A typical Thor thing. We saw him do it in the previous episodes, Tales of Asgard. He seals off, he defeats, some kind of underground bad guy, and the trolls in the case of the Tales of Asgard, and then seals the place off so they'll hopefully stay there forever, which they don't. This being a superhero comic, the bad guys always come back. Thor, they fill Thor in, and he's a little shocked. The living rock, you've destroyed it. And they explain about the weak point and the implosion. And hey, where's the Hulk? And there's a guy passed out in the desert with purple shorts all torn up. It's Bruce Banner. And Betty walks him back to the Jeep, and they drive off into the sunset. And now the Avengers leave and are ready for their next adventure. And it's one of those stories where the next adventure is just about to begin. A message just came in over the Whirly Birds radio. I copied it down for you. It's from the Teen Brigade. It's a condition red emergency. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go. And off they go for their next adventure. I'm Tom Scioli, author of I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And in the show notes below, you'll find a link where you can pre-order I Am Stan. And at that same link, you can also pre-order the softcover edition of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. You can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli or on Instagram at Tom_Scioli. And please support my Patreon. Go to patreon.com and search Tom Scioli, and you'll have access to the full archive there, as well as new comics and drawings that I post. I'll see you next THORsday.